So I think we can go ahead and get started. Hi everyone. Again, my name is Samantha McGuigan. I am a Girl Program Specialist with Girl Scouts Western Pennsylvania. And today we are doing our Upcycling Challenge Patch Program, which I'm super excited about. We have some really fun crafts to do today using recycled items. And we'll also talk a little bit about recycling, reducing, reusing, and what that all means. Welcome everyone. I see somebody's tuning in from Michigan. Awesome. Welcome everybody. Okay, so as always for our patch programs, we'll be doing three things. We'll be doing discover, connect, and take action. For our discover, we'll be talking about what exactly is upcycling, how is it different than recycling, and why is it so important to reduce, reuse, and recycle. Then we'll connect. We'll learn how to make usable and fun items out of recycled materials, which is what upcycling is. And then our take action will be to share these upcycled crafts that we've made with others and share our knowledge about recycling and upcycling with others so they can make their own upcycled projects. So we'll be doing 4 different crafts. Before we get started, I'll go over the materials you need, but as always, feel free to be creative with your materials, use what you have. The first thing we'll be making are paper flowers. You'll need some recycled paper. I have some magazines, but you can also use newspapers, recycled artwork, anything like that, any sort of recycled paper. You'll need a stick, so a wooden skewer, twigs, a popsicle stick. I'm actually using some old pencils that I never used because they're kind of like wooden skewers. They're round, so they'll be perfect for the stems of my flowers. And they're super colorful too, which I love. And I never used them, so I thought this would be a good use for them. You'll need some scissors, some glue. A glue stick is great, but any kind of glue will work, and some tape. I have duct tape, but again, any kind of tape will work. We'll be making a Suncatcher, so you'll need recycled clear plastic. So that can be a plastic bottle, plastic lids. I have a cupcake container, which I've cut the top off of. If you have flat plastic, that will work the best, but any sort of recycled plastic will work. And I've already cut that out just because it's kind of loud when you cut plastic. So if you need a parent's help cutting out your plastic, feel free to have them do that now while we talk about recycling. Again, you'll need scissors. If you want, you can add beads, some fishing line. If you don't have fishing line, any sort of string will work. Fishing line is just nice because it's clear. And then some colored markers, Sharpies, anything like that, and a hole punch. We'll be making a banjo. So you'll need a recycled lid. I have a salsa lid, so anything that has like an indent in it will work. Some rubber bands, and some popsicle sticks. Any sort of craft stick, popsicle stick will work. You can use as many or as little as you like. And some tape. And then last we'll be making a planter. And all you need for that is a little recycled aluminum can, about this shape and size, but it doesn't have to be exactly this. And then some clothespins. So that is what you'll need today. Again, you don't have to make all of these projects. You can make one, you can make all of them, that's up to you. Or if you don't have these supplies, feel free to make an entirely different upcycle project. And if you are doing that, I'd love to know in the comments what you are making. Okay, so before we start on our projects, I just want to talk a little bit about recycling, reducing, reusing, what that means, how upcycling is different, and how you can do your part to reduce, reuse, and recycle. So what are the 3 R's? As I've already mentioned, they're reduce, reuse, and recycle. So reducing, first, is cutting back on the amount of trash we make. Reusing is finding a way to use trash so that we don't have to throw it out. And recycling is using trash to remake new goods that can be sold again. So why should we use the 3 R's? I'd love to know your ideas in the comments, so feel free to put those in the comments. But here is one of the main reasons we use the 3 R's: reduce, reuse, and recycle. It's not like we need to worry about what happens to our trash after we put it in the trash can, right? Well, that's wrong. Think about how much you toss out each day. If you multiply that by the billions of people on our planet, that's a lot of trash. Waste, or trash, and how we choose to handle it affects our world's environment. That's your environment. The environment is everything around you, including the air, water, land, plants, and man-made things. We need a healthy environment for our own health and happiness, which is why effective waste management is so important to you and everyone else. That includes people, animals, and plants. The waste we create has to be carefully controlled to be sure that it does not harm our environment and our health. I see some people writing in the comments that it helps our planet, it helps animals. The 3 R's are reduce, reuse, recycle. We want to keep the world clean. Awesome. All great answers. And this information that I'm telling you about, this comes from ecokidsusa.org. So if you want to learn more information, feel free to visit their website. Again, that's ecokidsusa.org. Okay, so now that we've talked about the 3 R's, let's dig a little deeper into each one individually. So first is reducing. Reducing is simply creating less waste or trash. It's also the best method of the 3 for keeping our earth clean. And you might say, why? Why aren't all of them good? Well, they are all good, but reducing is best because it stops the problem at the source. By making less waste in the first place, there's less mess to clean up. So you always want to try reducing first. If you can't reduce, you want to try to reuse. And then if you can't reuse, you're going to go ahead and recycle. So we want to start by trying to reduce and then follow to reuse and then recycle. So here are some ways that you can help reduce the amount of waste you make. Again, these are some ideas from the website, but feel free to add your own ideas in the comments. I'd love to know what you guys do to help reduce waste. So one thing you can do is pack your lunch in a lunchbox instead of a disposable bag. Even though it might be easier to throw away a paper or plastic bag than carry around a lunchbox, disposable bags create much more trash. If you attend a school that meets 180 days a year, as most of us do, and you bring your lunchbox, you bring a lunchbox every day, you could save 180 bags. And if all kids did that, think of how many less bags there would be in landfills. Also, you can pack your lunch items in reusable containers instead of disposable ones. So instead of putting them in those like little plastic sandwich pouches, you use a reusable plastic container, such as Tupperware, that you can use over and over again. You might ask your parents to bring their own bags when shopping, rather than keep getting plastic bags. A lot of stores sell canvas grocery bags that you can buy. And just think about all the plastic grocery bags that would be out of landfills if we all used reusable bags, which I know a lot of stores are trying to do now. They really encourage you to use reusable bags rather than plastic or paper. Another one is turning off the lights when you're not using them. So you might not think of light as waste, but by leaving on the lights, it wastes electricity and energy. So another way to reduce light waste is to turn off lights when you're not using them. Another one that you might not think about is water waste. Make sure your faucets aren't dripping. After you wash your hands, brush your teeth, get out of the bath, make sure that there's no water dripping from the faucets. Fresh water is a resource, and dripping faucets waste that water. Okay, so let me see if anybody has any other ideas. I'd love to know what you guys do to reduce. You said people are saying reduce, reuse, and recycle keeps our earth clean and saves many lives, including sea turtles. I love that. Okay. Next, now that we talked about reducing, if we can't reduce, we want to try to reuse. So reuse is taking old items that you might consider throwing away and finding a new use for them. Reusing helps in situations where it isn't possible to reduce. So for example, you could donate clothes that no longer fit you instead of throwing those away. You could give them to friends who have younger brothers or sisters, parents who have friends whose kids might be able to fit into them that you no longer fit into. And even if you can't find anyone who needs those old clothes, you could donate them to a consignment shop or a charity where they can find a new home rather than being thrown away and becoming waste. You can also donate toys you no longer want. Just like clothes, unwanted toys can be donated to charities or friends who could use them. You can use plastic grocery bags as trash bags. So there's plastic bags that you get at the store. If you don't have a canvas bag and you end up using one of those to bring your groceries home, you can reuse those as trash bags. So if you have real little garbage cans, like I have one in my bathroom, those are great to use as trash bags. You can use old clothing, so old clothing that you can't donate, that's dirty or ripped, that can't be donated or given to someone else. You can use them, you can tear them up and use them as cleaning rags. So you could give them to your parents for dusting, cleaning, anything like that, which we actually do in my house. My mom uses lots of old t-shirts and bed sheets and things for cleaning. And if you can't reduce or reuse, your last option is recycling. So this is probably what you've heard about the most. Recycling is changing old products into new ones so that they can be resold. So for example, when you set out bottles and cans to be recycled, they are taken to a plant where they can be reprocessed and made into new things. They may be changed into new bottles or cans, or they can be changed into things like bicycles or even asphalt. So the most well-known recycled materials are glass, paper, plastic, aluminum. You've probably recycled all of those things in your life. But other recyclable materials include batteries, biodegradable waste like plants and kitchen waste, food waste. You can recycle concrete, electronics, and metals like steel and iron. You can also recycle textiles, which we touched on a little bit, which is clothes, materials like cotton. And you can also recycle timber. So before you throw something out, think about if it could be recycled. So what is upcycling, which is what we're doing today, and how is it different from recycling? So a website called upcycle.com defines upcycling as the act of taking something no longer in use and giving it a second life and new function. In doing so, the finished product often becomes more practical, valuable, and more beautiful than it previously was. So a great definition of upcycling. It is not the same as recycling. Recycling takes materials, again, plastic, paper, metal, glass. It breaks them down into their base materials, and then they're remade into a new product. And usually this new product is of lesser quality because it has been put down into its base and remade. Whereas when you upcycle an item, you're not breaking down the materials. You're simply refashioning it, like cutting a t-shirt into strips of yarn. But it's made of the same materials as when you started. The upcycled item is typically better or the same quality as the original, whereas recycled items aren't typically as good of quality. So now that we've discussed reduce, reuse, recycle, and upcycling, what would you consider upcycling? Under the 3 R's, which of the 3 R's, reduce, reuse, or recycle, would upcycling fall under? Might be a little bit of a trick question. What does upcycling fall under? Oh, someone says during the virus, some stores won't allow us to use the reusable bags. Yes, right now, for safety purposes, they don't want you to use reusable bags. But once we get back to a little bit more of normal, I would encourage you to use reusable bags. Any ideas under what upcycling falls under? Reduce, reuse, or recycle? What do we think? Someone says reuse. See another reuse. Someone says reuse is upcycling. See a lot of reuse coming in. Yes, that is correct. Awesome job, guys. Upcycling is reusing because we're not recycling it. We're not putting it to be decomposed and used again. We're not reducing because we do have that material. We are reusing because we're taking that material and we are turning it into something else. We're reusing it. So great job, guys. So now that we've discussed all about reduce, reuse, recycle, and what exactly upcycling is, I think we can go ahead and get started on what I think we're all here for, which is our upcycling crafts. So our first one, as I said, let me back this up a little bit so you guys can see as I work. We are going to be making paper flowers. So you can use any sort of recycled paper, as I said. I'm going to be using magazines. I have this HGTV magazine because it has lots of bright colors in it. But you can use any magazine, newspaper, recycled artwork, anything like that. Okay, so I am going to take one page from here. I'm going to try to find a page that has lots of fun, bright colors on it because I want my flower to come out bright and colorful. Let me see. This one looks good. It looks like a lot of bright colors on this page. I'm going to pull that out. Oh, this might be a double page. Maybe I'll try this page. Okay, and this one page is going to make one flower. So that's a beautiful color, so I think I'll use that. Okay. And the first thing I'm going to do is fold it in half. But if you're using something a different size than this, try to make it similar to the size that I'm making it, but it doesn't have to be perfect. Again, if you're using newspaper, it might not be exactly the same size. We're going to cut this in half. And this one piece is going to make one flower. So we're going to set this aside. We're going to use that next. But you should have a piece of paper that's about this size. So half a sheet of paper, like a regular sheet of paper that you would see in a printer. That's what we're going to do first. And I'm going to use this beautiful like teal color on the outside. So, there we go. I am going to fold this in half like this, and I'm going to glue it down, but I don't want to crease this edge here because this is going to be our petals, so I want it to be nice and fluffy still. There we go. So I am going to glue one edge with a glue stick. Fold this in half. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. So it looks something like this, and we want to keep this nice and fluffy. We don't want to crease it. Okay, and then we're going to take a pair of scissors, and we're going to start cutting strips, but we're not going to cut all the way through. We're only going to cut till about where you meet the glued part. So I'm going to cut in about 1/4 to 1/2 inch thick will be good. That will be the size of each petal. So you can see I cut it, but I didn't cut it all the way through. And I'm going to do that all the way down. Again, they don't have to be perfect or all the same width. Just make them as similar as you can. And you don't want to cut all the way through. You want to leave a little bit of space here that's not cut. Okay, so when I'm all done, it looks like this. All cut up, but not cut all the way through. And then I'm going to take my wooden skewer, my popsicle stick. I have these old pencils that I never used, and I have so many pencils laying around. I'm going to use this. I'm going to take, where can you guys see? So I'm going to take my glue stick again, and on the side that I glued before, I'm going to put glue all the way down, just on one side. Okay, so I've just glued all the way down on the opposite side. And that's just going to help our flower stay together as we wrap it around our wooden stick. You can also use sticks from your yard for this too. Those will work well. Okay, so I'm just going to start wrapping these around. And you want it to be pretty tight. Try to get it as tight as you can against your wooden skewer or pencil or stick. I'm just going to keep wrapping that all the way around. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. We're going to fluff it out at the end so that it looks like a flower. And if it does rip, no worries. Just put some glue and wrap that around too. Just try to keep it nice and tight. I might need to add a little more glue. The one I put on there originally is starting to dry out a little bit. Put a little more glue on just so that it all sticks together. Glue it all the way around. And if it's slipping off a little bit, don't worry. We are going to tape it at the end, so it'll stay on nice and tight. Okay. So that's what I have so far. But I want my flower to be a little bit fuller, so I'm going to take that second sheet of paper that I have from my magazine, and I'm going to do the same thing all over again. So I'm going to take my glue stick, I'm going to glue one side here. I'm going to fold this over. Someone says glue to the eraser side and you have a great pencil topper. That is a great idea. I love that. So I've done the same thing. I've glued it and I've kept this nice and fluffy. And I'm going to go ahead and cut strips again, not cutting all the way through. And if you need some more time, if I'm going a little fast for you, no worries. You can pause the video and restart whenever you're ready. We'll also have this on our Facebook page, the same video, when we're finished here, as well as on our YouTube channel, which we'll link in the comments. There's a few more steps. I see someone had a question. A couple more steps, but we're almost there. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing I did before. I'm going to glue down here. I think I'll do half at a time this time so the glue doesn't dry out. And I'm just going to wrap this around like I did before, just so my flower is a little fuller. But if you like the way it looks with just one sheet of paper, you're welcome to keep it with just one sheet of paper. I'm just wrapping that around the same as I did before. More glue. And just keep wrapping. Oh, it's sliding off my pencil. I'll show you how to fix that in just a second. And that's why you want to keep it nice and tight. Okay, so now that this is all glued, you can see mine is slipping off a little bit. So I'm going to take a piece of tape. I have some purple duct tape, but any tape will work. Green is a great one if you want it to look like a real flower. You can put the tape all the way down your wooden stick so that it looks like a stem. Someone says they've already made 2 flowers. Awesome. I think it would be great to make a whole bouquet of these flowers. I think it would be really pretty. So I'm going to tape this at the bottom, and I'm just going to tape it all the way around so that it's nice and secure. Squeeze that nice and tight, so that should stay on there pretty good now. And then I'm going to take just my fingers and sort of flatten these out, fluff them up a little bit so it looks more like a flower. Just sort of finagle them into the position that I like. Okay, and there is your flower. I have another one here that I did before. So I put those together, and I think that looks really pretty. I think if I made a couple more, I could put them in a vase and have a little vase of paper flowers. So I think that turned out really pretty. Okay, now that we've done our paper flowers, let's move on to our next craft. This one's a little bit easier. We will make our own little banjo. So for this one, you need a lid, sort of like a pickle lid, a salsa lid, anything that has sort of an indent in it. I'll need a couple rubber bands. You can play around with the different widths and lengths of them, whatever works best for you. And I have 3 popsicle sticks that I'll be using as the handle for my banjo. But if you have just one stick that's a little wider, or you just want to use 1 popsicle stick or 2 or even 4, however big you want to make your handle, that's up to you. I'm going to go with 3. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is take my lid. I've cleaned this one out, and then I'm going to put rubber bands around it. So I have this smaller rubber band, which will fit pretty good just on its own. I don't have to double it up. Looks like this. I just put it around. I've made sure it's nice and flat, but it doesn't have to be perfect. Looks just like this. And then I have 2 more, and these ones are a little longer, so I'm going to double them so that they're a little smaller, and I'm going to put that around as well, like this. And then since it's doubled, I can sort of pull them apart and make 2 strings for my banjo. Looks like that. I'm going to do the same with this other rubber band. I'm going to pull it apart just a little bit so I get 2 strings out of it. And don't worry if you find that they're starting to slide off a little bit, because we are going to tape it down. Whoop. This one came off. Let me try again. It looks kind of like this. You can see I made this pink one into 2. And then I'm just going to take a piece of duct tape and I'm going to tape them down on the back, just so that they stay in place a little better and don't slide off the end. It doesn't have to be duct tape, any tape will work, just to make sure they stay in place. Oops. Okay, I'm going to take another piece of tape, and I'm going to use it to tape together my popsicle sticks to make the handle. You guys see, there we go. So I'm going to lay them all next to each other, so they're all lined up evenly. And then I'm going to take a piece of tape that's a little longer than all 3, width-wise. And I'm going to tape them like this. But if you have just one popsicle stick, that works too. You don't have to tape them all together. I just like the width of 3. So it looks something like this. And I'm just going to tape that onto the back of my lid so that it looks like this. Tape it down nice and tight. I can add some extra tape if I want to make it so everything's on nice and tight. But in the end, it should look a little something like this. You have a little mini banjo. You guys can hear this. So I can make my own little songs with this. And feel free to play around with the width of the rubber bands, the tightness of the rubber bands, because depending on that, they'll make different noises. So if you want to make another one and play around with the width of them, with the tightness, see how they sound different, I think that would be awesome. But this is what mine sounds like. And then if you want, you could even paint the handle. You could tape around to make it the color that you want. But this is our mini recycled banjo. So we have our flowers and we have our banjo. Okay. Next one is our Suncatcher. So you'll need some recycled plastic. I have a recycled cupcake container, but plastic bottles work well too, plastic lids. If you have flat plastic, so like the top of this is more flat, that might be a little easier to cut. So if your mom or dad, whoever lives with you, the adult that lives with you, can help you cut that out, that might be a little easier. But I also wanted to mention one other thing, is that on a lot of plastic, anything that can be recycled, you find a little number inside a triangle. So you can see on this cupcake container, inside is that little recycle symbol, triangle. and there's a number 1 inside there. So we know in our community that the numbers 1 and 2 can be recycled. You'll see the numbers 5 as well. Unfortunately, in our community, we're not able to recycle those. And that's different in different counties, municipalities. That'll be different. They'll tell you. Your parents should know what can be recycled and what can't. But you can tell what can be recycled by this number here. So we recycle 1s and 2s, but your community might recycle 1s, 2s, and 5s. Just depends on where you live. So a fun little fact, but we'll go ahead and get started on our upcycled Suncatcher. So I'm just going to cut out some flat pieces of plastic. And they don't have to be perfect. We're going to make a lot of fun shapes. So I just have flat sheets of plastic here. And I'm going to cut those into a bunch of different fun shapes. I'm going to try to make them all a similar size, but I'm going to do triangles, rectangles. I'll show you about the size I'm going to do. So if you can see this against my wrist, against my hand, that's about the size I'm going to be making. That's a little better. Not too big, not too small, but feel free to experiment with the different sizes. It's going to all be part of our Suncatcher, so you can make them really as big or as small as you want. You can make some triangles. Just some weird, funky shapes. Bonus points if you can tell me what shape this is. This one's a triangle. All of similar size. So I'm going to make about 5 or 6 of those. But again, feel free to make more depending on how big you want your Suncatcher to be. Okay, I think that's good for me. So I have 6 all in different shapes, but all about the same size. And 6. And I'm going to take, I have these Crayola washable markers, but permanent markers will work well too. Even like watercolor paints could work. So I like blue, green, and orange. Those are some of my favorite colors, so I'm going to go with those. And since I have 6, I'm going to do 2 of each color. If I don't lose them because they're clear. And I'm just going to color those in on one side. I have washable markers, but any sort of marker will work. You might just need to give it a second to dry. So I'm coloring the one side. You can see that a little better. You might want to put a little piece of paper underneath so you don't get marker on the table. Use my magazine. So it ends up looking like this. It's a little hard to see on the camera, but it's green. And I'm going to do that to all my little pieces of plastic. If you have colored plastic, you don't even have to color it in. So maybe you have a container that's like a green plastic. That would be fun too, or blue plastic. That would work. Another green one. I'm going to do 2 blue and 2 orange. And it doesn't have to be colored in perfectly. I'm just going to give it some color for the sun to catch. This one's blue. It's hard to see in the camera. I promise it's blue. And these are washable markers, but let me know if yours works, if you think it works better with permanent markers. And orange. Someone is saying they're worried about recycling water and light because if we don't have light, we can't see, and if we don't have water, we can't survive without water, which is a great question. Reducing isn't about getting rid of it altogether. We don't want to never use light or water because obviously we need those in our lives, but we want to try to reduce it as much as we can. So if we don't need to have the light on when we don't need to have a light on when we're not in a room. So we should turn it off when we leave. So we're reducing our light pollution. And we don't want our faucets to drip when we're not using them because that's a waste of the water. So hopefully that clears things up a little bit. You can see this one is orange. I think that one you can see a little bit better. 2 orange ones. So now I'm going to take a hole puncher. If you don't have a hole puncher, you might ask Mom and Dad to help you poke a little hole through the plastic, but be careful if you're using scissors or something like that. And so I'm just going to punch a little hole on one edge of each piece of plastic. So just like that. I think the orange turned out the best. Let me know what colors you guys are doing for your sun catchers. Okay, so I put a little hole in each one. Now I'm going to take some fishing line. Fishing line is great for sun catchers because you can't see it in the light. But if you don't have fishing line, you can use string, twine, anything like that. And I'm going to make it nice and long just so I have a lot of string to play with, but I can always cut off the excess at the end if I don't need all of it. So mine's pretty long. It's hard to see because it's clear, but it's about this long. And I also have beads that I'm going to use just to make it nice and pretty, add some extra stuff to it, but if you don't have beads, you can use more pieces of plastic. Maybe you have fake flowers that you can string through, anything like that. Be creative with what you have. So I'm going to do my orange first. I'm going to thread the fishing line through that hole I punched. And I'm going to put this all the way towards the bottom. You can see that. And then I'm going to tie a knot so that it stays in place. You can see I've got it to the end. This is the end of my string. I'm going to tie a knot so that it stays in place and it won't slide down my string. Okay, and then maybe I'll do, I have these clear beads that I think would be pretty for a sun catcher. I think I have an orange one, so I'll do an orange to match. I'm going to thread that through the top of my string, get all the way down towards the bottom, and then wherever I want it to stay in place, I'm going to put mine a little above my piece of plastic that I colored in, I'm going to tie it in a knot. Angle it so I get it just in the place I want, and it's going to be like this. So to tie it in a knot to get it to stay in place, it's going to be hard to show you with clear string. So let me try with this green one. I'm going to thread it through, get it to about where I want it. I'm going to try to space mine pretty evenly apart so that it's like this. Then I'm going to cross my string over, just like this. Pull the string through, and tie it so that it stays in place. And I can sort of adjust it so that I get it to where I want it to sit on my string. Just like so. And then if you're having trouble with the knots, feel free to pause, grab a parent. I'm sure that they can help you tie those knots. So I'm going to take a green bead. See if I can find like a clear green one. Maybe I'll do just a clear, kind of like this. It catches the light and it's really pretty. Thread that through. Get it to about where I want it and tie a knot by crossing over behind the bead and then pulling the string through. That's what I have so far. I'm going to do blue now. Lots of pieces of plastic. You might have to put 2 knots so that it doesn't come untied. I've also done this where I've used the beads as stoppers, so I haven't tied the plastic in place. I've just used a bead so that when I hold it up or tie it up, the bead stops the piece of plastic from running down. So again, feel free to be creative, experiment. A little better. Okay, so I want blue next. Let me know what colors you guys are using, what sort of plastic you've used, what you're recycling to make this. And if you're not big at tying knots, you don't have to do that either. If you want to just make it like a bracelet, that works too. A little clear blue one, I think will go well. Just like this, so you guys can see that okay. We only have a couple minutes left, so I think I'm going to stop there for now. But feel free to make it as long as you want. Put as many beads or pieces of plastic on as you want. But I think this looks pretty just with a couple pieces of plastic and a couple beads. It's a little hard to see again because the plastic is clear. But if I hang that up in a window and the sun catches it, I think it will look really pretty. So that is our Suncatcher. I'd love to see what you guys made, so feel free to post pictures in the comments at the end of the video. And our very last project is a mini planter. This one is super easy. All you need is a little aluminum container. I think this size works pretty good, but if you have one that's a little bigger or smaller, that's fine too. You just want it to be a circle. Actually, a square would probably work too. This is a tuna can, but I'm sure there's plenty of other cans that work well. And I've cleaned it out. I've torn the sticker off as well, but it doesn't have to be perfect because we're going to be putting clothespins all around, so you won't be able to actually see the aluminum. Someone says they also used a cupcake cover to make their little pieces of plastic for their Suncatcher. Awesome. Coincidental. Okay, so I have this, and I'm going to take my clothespins. I have some older ones that have they're a little darker. They look like they've been around for a long time, but I actually kind of like that rather than new ones because it gives it kind of a distressed look. So I'm just going to pin that just like so onto my container, and I'm going to do that all the way around. I want to get them right next to each other. And it's okay if they're not quite the same height. Doesn't have to be perfect. Looks like this so far. And again, I'm going to do that all the way around. And I think this is super easy, and it would be nice to make a bunch of the same. So I could make like 3 or 4 of these. I've seen people use them to grow vegetables, like just in their kitchen. So parsley, dill, rosemary, any of those kinds of spices where you don't need a large area for them work well in these little containers. Put those all the way around. So I've used 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 clothespins so far. So if you have a lot of old clothespins, which people don't really use anymore, at least we don't use them too much here because a lot of people have dryers. They don't hang clothes up outside too much. So maybe you have grandparents or great aunts or uncles that have a bunch of these just lying around that they don't have any use for, rather than throw them away. They could give them to you, and you can make them a nice little pot. And I like how these are lots of different colors. It makes it kind of look like an old fence. It has like a distressed look. I think it's really pretty. Some more clothespins. Stick this one. There we go. So I've put them all the way around. I've made this adorable little plant pot. So I just fill this with dirt. And I think these are great ones to keep in your kitchen, again, for things like rosemary, dill, any sort of seasonings, parsley, that only need a small container. And if you really want, you could even have mom or dad drill some holes in the bottom to let the water seep out, which is always good for plants. In case you give them a little too much water, you need a little bit to drain out the bottom. But again, ask mom or dad to help you with that one, aunt or uncle, to put some holes in the bottom. And that is our last upcycle craft. So let me get them all together because I want everyone to see what we've accomplished here today. I think we did a lot of fun ones. If you're making anything else, if you've made anything else, I'd love to know in the comments. I would love to know if you're planning on doing something else, even after we're done here today in a couple minutes. And you make something, if you've made one of these or you've made something that wasn't on our list, I would love to see that as well. You can post it in the comments on our Facebook page after this is over. So this is what we have. We've made our flowers, which I think you can make a whole bouquet of, put them in a vase, or take a container. This is a peanut butter container, and I could reuse that. I could upcycle that into a vase. Maybe even paint this. That would be a cool idea. See, there's so many ways that we can upcycle and reuse. We've made our little banjo, which I'm sure my family will love hearing me play. We've made our Suncatcher, and I can tie this up. I made this a really long string, but I can tie this up. I can add some more to it. I just didn't want to take up too much of your time. But lots of beads, plastic would be really pretty, I think. I'd love to see yours again. And then we have our beautiful little plant pot made from just regular aluminum container and some old clothespins. So not only have we made some beautiful new things that we've upcycled, but we've also kept a lot of the stuff that would have been in a landfill out of the landfill. So instead of all the stuff sitting in a landfill, it has a new purpose and a new use in my home, which I think is really beautiful. So with that, we are at 2 o'clock. I want to thank you all for joining me for another virtual patch program with Girl Scouts Western Pennsylvania. Thank you for taking the time out of your afternoon. I'm sure everybody's very busy. Lots of summer stuff going on, so thank you for joining us. We have more activities. We can link our website in the comments where we have lots of other virtual activities. If you're not a Girl Scout yet, no worries. You can become a Girl Scout. We have lots of awesome virtual camps going on right now. Again, we'll link in the comments to that so you can check out what virtual camps we're doing, which you do have to be a Girl Scout member for, but you can sign up anytime. You can get signed up today. You don't have to have ever been a Girl Scout before, so don't worry about that. You could be in any grade and still sign up to be a Girl Scout and take part in our virtual camps. So again, we'll link that in the comments. Thank you so much for joining us for another virtual patch program. We'll link where you can get the patch in the comments as well. But thank you again for joining me, and have a lovely rest of your Tuesday. Bye, guys.